Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Caltrans launching the equity tool that will help all California communities benefit from transportation projects. Today, the leaders who are going to be talking about this very important tool, Transportation Secretary Tokes Omashakin, Caltrans Director Tony Tavares, and Eric Sundquist, the Acting Deputy Director for the Director's Office of Equity, Sustainability, and Tribal Affairs. Just some house cleaning items. You'll see a Q&A function. You can put your questions in there, and I will ask those questions at the end of the press conference. Please give this is for media questions. Please give your name and affiliation. Because we are on a tight schedule. Because the program is also doing a more granular stakeholder meeting afterwards. Please keep the media questions framed on EQI. Any other questions or questions that we were not able to be answered, I will follow up with the reporters. So, having said that, I introduce Transportation Secretary Tokes Omashakin.
A very good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me very well. I'm pretty pleased to be here this morning, here with all of you members of the media to deliver some pretty exciting news for our state and the public. Before I get to my remarks this morning, I want to start off by thanking the Caltrans director, specifically Tony Tavares and his team, for all the work that they've done to get us to today. Some other folks on the team that have worked on this, you will hear from Eric Sundquist in a little bit, Alexis Lentz, Henry McKay, Carolyn Abrams, and again, many other people on the staff who have helped us get to today. So I'm here this morning and today for one reason, the people of California. Governor Newsom, from his inception into office, has challenged us to help create a true California for all. And while the state's transportation network is essential and an absolute necessity, it should not cause harm to its users and neighboring communities. Yet transportation-induced harms are inequitably distributed. Historically, entire generations have been challenged from such harms. Transportation inequities can't be addressed adequately without critical data to help identify priority populations most impacted by California's transportation system. Our team here at Caltrans, CalSTA, CTC, all the state transportation team will continue to be innovative to attain our equity-related goals. So I'm very thrilled this morning to announce the EQI, the Equity Index tool that has been developed to identify inequities from various angles in the transportation space. It includes 3 data screens. 1, priority populations, focused on household income and federally recognized tribal lands. Number 2, traffic burdens, measured by traffic proximity, volume, and crash exposure. And finally, number 3, access to destinations, measuring gaps in transit, bicycle, and pedestrian networks. Identifying these inequities aims to help us better inform project selection, program evaluation, and policy decisions. It will help us better align the transportation system to state environmental and equity goals. The Caltrans team will be working to advance equitable outcomes during project planning, development, and design phases for both the department and partner public agencies. I'll say as I come to a close, before I hand over to the director, this EQI aligns with our core 4 priorities. I think some of you in the media have heard us talk about this. Those core 4 priorities, as we call them, are equity, climate action, safety, and economic prosperity. The EQI development has been in progress for more than a couple of years. It's part of CalSTA and Caltrans's equity statement and is also an action item in our larger policy document, CAPTI. The EQI relies on both publicly available and internally developed data sets. So to members of the press who are here, again, thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for help disseminating this critical information to members of the public and our partners. It will be a tool that will help, again, the State Transportation Agency continue to work towards that true California for all. So with that, I want to hand things over to our Caltrans director, Tony Tavares. I don't think he needs much of an introduction. Tony, if you're there. Okay, he's there. Tony, good morning. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you again, Secretary Omishakin, for your unwavering support in the development of this transformable equity tool at Caltrans, and also for your leadership at the state and the national level in the space of equity. Truly appreciate everything you're doing for California. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caltrans Director Tony Tavares, and today Caltrans is launching a data tool that turns one of our core 4 foundational principles, equity, into true action. The Transportation Equity Index, or the EQI, will help us maintain and build a transportation system that benefits all Californians, now and into the future. This tool identifies transportation-based priority populations and will enable Caltrans to better examine equity implications relating to our transportation decisions. Caltrans exists to improve and save lives, and this tool will help us do both. The EQI tool is one of the many ways Caltrans is working to ensure equity is ingrained in our transportation practices. I want to take a moment to thank the entire Caltrans team who has worked to develop this tool, as well as the numerous agencies, stakeholders, and partners who have provided input and countless hours into making this EQI tool a reality. Your involvement has been critical in creating this tool and will be invaluable to us in moving forward. At this point, I'd like to introduce Eric Sundquist, our Caltrans Acting Deputy Director for the Director's Office of Equity, Sustainability, and Tribal Affairs. Eric will be able to provide more of the details on the tool, and he and his team will also be available to answer questions afterward. So now I'd like to pass it over to you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Secretary Omishakin, and welcome everybody. Very brief presentation here so we can get to your questions, but it's helpful to maybe see this before we get to that. So as indicated, there are 3 screens in EQI. It is a spatial tool. It runs in GIS. If you're familiar with CalEnviroscreen, it has some similarities there. So we first look at demographics, and specifically we look at household income and tribal land status. So to be screened in as a priority population, it would have to meet certain thresholds there. Then we look at transportation burdens. As the Secretary talked about, we've had historic burdens inequitably distributed around lower income areas. So we want to look at traffic proximity and volume, as well as crashes in neighborhoods. And then third, we want to look at how well can people access destinations. And in particular, we're looking at multimodal access to destinations. So where access to destinations is poor, and destinations could include both work and non-work destinations. So non-work includes shopping, school, and a longer list we can fill you in later. If that access is poor, then that is a sign that it may be a disadvantaged population. So we look at those 3 items together, and we can do various things with that. So if we look at the demographic overlay, again, income and tribal lands, along with the traffic impacts, we get a traffic exposure screen. So we might just look at that. And in fact, as we're developing our project prioritization plan called CSIS, the Caltrans Strategic Investment Strategy, we have a criterion in there for this. So where additional traffic exposure would occur in a disadvantaged community, that would count against a project, and vice versa. So the second screen is, again, starts with the demographic overlay, looks at where there is poor access to destinations, and then we can look at areas that may have, we want to prioritize for improvements in access to destinations. And then finally, if we put all those together, we get our transportation-based priority population screen. So that what that is where incomes are low, it's tribal lands, where there's significant traffic impacts and poor access to destinations. So if we want to really go to conditions where it is sort of checking all the boxes and the conditions are the most in need of remediation, that is our screen. And so that's kind of the ultimate level of disadvantage or priority population screen. So what it looks like, if you go to the link, you will see a web map that's in GIS. This is just a screenshot of it, so you can't really tell exactly what's going on because you can toggle layers on and off. If you want to see the full transportation-based priority population, which again is all the screens, you can turn that on. If you just want to look at traffic exposure, access to destinations, or just the demographic overlay, you can do that. I would say one thing that is, I mentioned Cal Enviro screen. One thing you might notice here, if you're familiar with that one, this is much more granular. So we're down at the census block group and block level. That's because the census tract level that some other tools like Cal Enviro screen may be fine for emissions, but if you're trying to describe walking conditions, you really need to be at the very granular level because they vary so much across a census tract or a bigger area. Even demographics can vary a lot. So we're doing it as granularly as we can, which is one of the benefits of this tool compared to some others, in addition to it focusing on transportation outcomes. So with that, as previously noted, we are going to have a meeting at 11 that everybody's welcome to join. It's more, go into this in a little bit more detail. It's really oriented toward users and partners, but anybody can join it. So that's at 11. And as Edward mentioned, he's available to follow up with press inquiries after this. And you can see the website for EQI to get the web map and to find the link to the meeting at 11. So with that, I will stop sharing and I think we can turn it over back to you, Edward.
Thanks, Eric. And I know you mentioned a little about Cal Enviro screen. And there is a question from Melanie Curry from Streets Blog. Kind of answered, but I don't know if you had any more, if you wanted to go a little further. So basically her question is, how is this different from Cal Enviro screen and why is it needed if we already have that tool? Also, does it address issues raised about Cal Enviro screen by researchers at Stanford? You may not be able to, unless you can, answer that last question, but I don't know if you wanted to go into it a little more.
I can take the first one, and I'm going to, I think, call on Henry on the article. We did see some write-ups on that in the last week or so, so we may be able to address that. It's different. As I noted, it's much more granular. It also focuses on transportation outcomes in a way that Cal Enviro screen doesn't. In addition, Cal Enviro screen has a whole lot of other criteria in it that we wanted to, that are certainly relevant to equity and to environment, but we didn't want to try to do double counting. We want to really look at the root causes of some of, say, asthma we wanted to look at what transportation contributes to that. And so that's where you get your transportation impacts in volume, and it's truck weighted volume because trucks emit more. So we really wanted to focus on what we do in transportation. We wanted to do it very granularly. We wanted to be able to reflect walkability and demographics accurately. So it's nothing to say that coronavirus screen is bad. It just didn't meet our needs in the way we wanted it to. So we thought a lot about that going into it. And Henry, I think you've read this research, or at least the secondhand account of it. Do you want to address the sensitivity issue?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Eric. No, our team saw that article a few days ago and have been discussing it. I think there's sort of two responses to that. First off, the actual research in that Stanford paper is super interesting, and I think we want to apply some of those sort of methodologies around sensitivity testing to EQI version 1.0, and that'll hopefully help inform improvements on the tool over time. Secondly, though, it is also sort of a use case issue. We feel very strongly that we can't build a tool that does everything. So as Eric mentioned, EQI is very narrowly focused on addressing these specific transportation issues. And so we want to be clear, when we're talking about use cases and how we actually apply the tool, that it's not the only tool. So it's going to, not cover the entire state, and will not address certain equity issues that are still really important to the department. And so we want to be very clear about what issues EQI is, built to address, and which ones it's not, because other tools and methods of analysis will still be really important in addressing those issues.
Okay, stay on, Henry, because I see the next question is about crash exposure. Yes, fatal collisions are weighted more heavily, but Henry, can you?
So hold on. Yeah, so hold on, Eric.
I'm sorry.
So the question is how is crash exposure calculated? Is it just the number of collisions in an area? Are fatal collisions weighed more heavily?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would, on our website, we do have documentation that kind of outlines this probably more thoroughly than I'll get into it right now. But basically, it's a crash density measurement. And so we look at, how many crashes are occurring in a given area, but we take into account the size of that area to kind of normalize for the different sizes of census blocks. And we do weight fatal and severe crashes higher than non-fatal and severe crashes at this point in the tool.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Any more questions for our panelists at this point? I just sent the links to the website, links to the stakeholder engagement meeting at shortly after this press conference is over. I also gave my email address. I'll say it. I'll give you my email again. If you have questions, you have follow-up questions. It's Edward, EDWARD .Barrera, BARRERA @dot.ca.gov. I encourage you to go over to the engagement meeting that's shortly after this. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Panelists, do we have any last words, or because there doesn't seem to be any more questions being asked at this point? Mr. Secretary?
Yes, just very briefly as we come to a close. Again, I want to thank the Caltrans team, Director Tavares, Deputy Director Eric Sundquist, and all the team there for the work that they've done to get this tool to the finish line. I remember we started working on this probably 3 years ago when I was in the department, and it's good to come to this point where the tool will be finally put into very good use in the department. And also, as the director mentioned, I want to thank our partners. I know a lot of people chimed in and provided comments and edits to this tool, so very appreciative of their support as well, and the governor's office for their review and input on this as well. As Eric mentioned, this tool will hopefully complement tools like CalEnviro Screen that have existed for our state for more than a decade. but it is very specifically focused on the transportation side and things that we can do better to invest in communities that have been underserved for many years, from many standpoints, from multimodal access to safety related issues. This tool will help us do a better job from the state in supporting many of those underserved communities. So again, to members of the media present and possibly members of the public as well, thank you very much for taking the time, and look forward to seeing results from the EQI. Thank you.
Director Tavares, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, thank you, Edward, and thank you, Secretary, for those words. Echo those same words. Just want to thank the members of the media, the public, our partners, the Secretary at CalSTA, our California Transportation Commission, and the Governor's Office for the support in delivering this tool. As the Secretary mentioned, I too am excited to see this tool revealed and to be able to start implementing it across the projects and policies and decisions that we make going forward. So again, thank you all for attending today, and look forward to rolling this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. And that concludes our press conference. Again, there'll be a stakeholder session. I sent the link. It's the EQI Stakeholder Briefing Launch Webinar, which will go into a bit more granular information for the EQI. Again, you can email me any questions. Please note that it may take a little while because the people who know will be at this stakeholder session. Again, thank you very